Alrighty guys, so I'm trying this asynchronous thing for once. This is an introduction to what is going to be your final project. What is your final project, you ask? So your final project is going to have several parts to it. Number one is you're going to put together a demonstration video of you demoing some piece of software or some technique in some piece of software. So that could be you want to show some mixing trick that you do in whatever DAW that you use, and that's fine. I don't care which DAW you're demoing. It could be a plugin that you like and you want to demo the features of the plugin. Could be the program itself. You want to show people basics of how to use it or some of the features that you like. Any one of those things is a valid video. The videos shouldn't be any more than 10 minutes in length. Preferably, I'd like you to keep it to 5 minutes if possible. I know in some techniques that's not going to work, so I'll give you an outlier of 10 minutes, but a target of 5 minutes per video. The tools that I'm going to show you, so you're going to record this video. We'll plan it, we'll record it, and I'll walk you through some of those steps today here. You'll plan it. You'll record it, you'll edit it, and then you will stream it live for the class at the last week of class. So at minimum, you'll need to create yourself a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel. I don't care which. I'm going to stay away from Facebook because some people I know don't want to join Facebook, and that's fine. But if you have a Gmail account, you can get a YouTube channel going right away. And if you don't want a YouTube account, you can sign up for Twitch, and either one of those platforms is free. So you'll need either a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel to make this work. So that's number one. That's also free. Number two, you're going to need certain tools, and I will show you what those tools are.
The first big tool you have is this program called OBS. I'll send you links along with this file. OBS stands for Open Broadcaster Software. We're going to dive a little deeper into this in a minute. But you can see that I actually have the option to capture my screen here too. I also have multiple cameras I can capture and audio and all kinds of fun stuff. OBS is going to probably be the command central of your project for the most part. There's another program called Handbrake. And it's one of my favorite icons right there, the pineapple and the margarita. Handbrake is a video converter, so it can take just about any sort of video in, convert it to a different codec on the output. This will be handy for when you have to actually stream. This will be the way you format your video. Handbrake is also free. I believe it's cross-platform, works on Mac and PC. So that's the other tool that you're going to need, and I'll show you and send you links. You're going to need some sort of video editing software. If you are on a Mac, you have iMovie. If you're on Windows, you have Windows Movie Maker. So as long as you're on one of those two platforms, you have some way of editing video. So you'll need that, and we'll put those things together as time goes, as I'm doing here. You will probably need some way to route audio from a program running on your machine to OBS. Some people have been able to do it using desktop audio. For some reason, I can't do that on my machine here, so I actually have a program that I paid for called Loopback. But there are free programs which do basically the same thing. It's just a little more involved to install them and set them up. But what Loopback essentially does is it allows me to combine my interface. This is my interface here with some sort of program audio, any kind of program I can route it to. This actually shows up as a sound card in my in whatever DAW that I'm using, so I can route it through Loopback, and then that can end up in OBS. I'll show you that a little bit later on. So that's essentially what you need. You need some sort of a online media channel, either YouTube or Twitch or just fine. You're going to need OBS. OBS is going to be the thing that you use, and again, I'm going to do a deep dive in the next segment of this video into OBS and how to use it and the various features that it offers you. You're going to need Handbrake. Handbrake is the program that's going to allow you to convert video formats if you need to. You're going to need some sort of video editing software. Now, if you have fancy video editing software like Final Cut or Media Composer or Adobe Premiere or what's the other one? I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a lot of them out there. DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci is actually free, so if you want a hardcore professional video editing software that's above and beyond what your stock free one can do that came with your operating system, DaVinci is actually the way to go. It is a resource hog, and I'm not going to dive into that program at all, but it exists and it's free, so it's something you can explore. You'll need some sort of way of routing audio from your program into OBS. You can probably get around it if you have a Mac again using a screen capture like I'm doing with QuickTime. But preferably you should do some of your work in OBS. It'll make your life easier, and it's a nice way to be able to do picture-in-picture and all that fun stuff without having to go through the extra process of editing. We're going to talk a little bit in the next part of this about pre-production workflow. So step one is to plan out what you want to do, and you can lightly script it. And I'll show you some tools for that and some templates you can use. I have an outline for myself written out about the things I want to say and the order I want to say them in. It helps guide me and keep me on point as I guide you through this video. So that's always the first step, is to actually plan what you want to do. Then, of course, we get into production, where we record and assemble all of the various tidbits that we're going to put together in our final video. And then there's the post-production of actually putting them together into a final product, which will then be streamed. So I guess step 4 is the actual streaming part. You'll definitely use OBS for that. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the scripting and pre-production process. So a bit about scripting. If you're paying attention to my video, you can see that this wasn't shot in order, even though this part of the video was actually shot after the whole rest of the video was done. That's one of the beauties of planning out your video ahead of time. You can make the shots you want to make at certain times and then go back and recombine them in editing later. That's exactly what I'm doing. Here we're looking at a 2-column script. This was an idea that was shown to me by friend Ariana Alexis Anderson. What it is it's basically a timeline turned on its side. So in the left-hand column, you have the visual that you want to be on screen at that exact moment. And then on the other column, you have what the audio should be, whether that's the scripted speaking, perhaps that's music. It could be a bunch of things. I'm going to scroll through. I'm not sure if there's music in here or not, but let's take a look. I don't think there is. But this is how she's a kick-ass producer, and this is how she organizes her shoots. She has this 2-column script. Now, one of the cool things about this is if you turn it sideways, if you would turn it horizontal, it would basically be a timeline of your video from beginning to end. So when you're first planning out your video, there's a few different tactics you can use. You could do something called storyboarding, where you draw on a piece of paper or use visuals to map out how you want the scenes to be. We don't need to get that detailed. We're only doing a little 5-minute video, right? But you could storyboard. You could say, okay, I want to start with this image, and then I want to switch to this screen. And while I'm on this screen, I want to tell you about this. And then when you've got your ideas down in the order you want them to be in, you write the visual you want in one column, and you write the accompanying audio in the other. Now, this is a detailed script. This is one that's going to be actually read by an actor. It's good to script if you can. I'm not so good at writing scripts, so most of this is being done off the cuff. But even if you just had bullet points of what you want to hit while this is on screen, it would keep you organized and it would allow you to build your scene. I'm going to show you a different way of organizing things called a shooting script. So once you know what the scenes are going to be and how it's going to flow chronologically, it doesn't mean that you have to record it in that order. This here is called a shooting script. So once you know what all the scenes are, here are the scenes here, and you can then say, okay, this is where it's going to be shot, and this is what the given camera angles are going to be, and this is what the description is. Now, once I've got it like this, I can then break it up into a schedule. And so if I were shooting like a few things on my back porch, I could make sure I get all the scenes that are on my back porch, and I would hit all those, and so on and so forth. So this is another way of organizing a script. This is a little more detailed, obviously, but either one of these options is fine. So planning out beforehand is important, at least knowing kind of what you want to show and when you want to show it, because then it gives you a target to shoot for, and it also makes sure that you get what we call a shot list, where we make sure that we actually record everything we mean to record and we're not missing anything by the time it comes to the editing process. So since OBS is going to be the hub of your production, it's worth spending some time looking at it. So this is the program OBS. This is not what it's going to look like when you first boot it up, but I'll show you how to build something like this, and then of course you can keep going. There's panels down the bottom here, and this is really what you need to pay attention to. On the far left, you have this little panel here called Scenes. You have another panel here called Sources. You have another panel here called your audio mixer. Actually, yours won't look like this. Yours is going to look like this when you first start, which is fine. I mean, you can leave it like this if you like. This is scene transitions. We'll talk about this in a little bit. And here are the main controls. You have a couple of different modes where you could switch between scenes if you like it. This looks more like an actual video switching software, but we don't actually need that for now. We can stick to this fairly simple view. The first thing you're going to want to do is build a scene. So you come down to your scenes panel over here and you click the plus button. I already have a couple pre-made here, right? But you won't have any yet, so you have to make one. So you add a scene. Let's call this and you can see now it's blank. There's nothing here. It's just totally blank screen, no audio, no nothing. So when you build a scene, you have to add sources to it. So this is super useful. You can add images, you can add sound, you can add titles, you can add video capture, you can add whatever you want. But all that's going to be found in your sources panel right here. So I'm going to go ahead and add something right away. You're hearing me because I'm doing my screen capture in QuickTime. Right now I'm not recording this through OBS. Obviously I couldn't show you OBS through OBS. That would be a little crazy. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a video capture device. So I have 3 cameras hooked up to this particular computer. So once I've named my source, I click the device that I want to connect it to. So for instance, I have my FaceTime camera. That's my FaceTime camera. That's what that looks like. I have this normal Logitech webcam thing. That's the one you're used to seeing me on. And just for laughs, I hooked up my my 3-chip camera over here on a capture card. So that's getting me in the side of my head. So I can say, hey, that's the better camera, obviously. But let's say I want to use this as my main video input. And that's fine. I can also have multiple sources. But let's start here first. You can pick a preset. I think it's limited to your canvas. Well, we'll talk about all that in a second too. So you can pick your input source, hit OK. And now you see I have a camera input source. It doesn't fill my whole canvas here because the resolution is smaller. This is a 720p input as opposed to a 1080, which I believe is what this whole frame is. So let's say I wanted my video input here to fill my entire canvas. We have to do something called a transform. What's transform? Well, that's going to stretch or resize your video however you want. Now, one thing I can do, you can see there's a red frame here, right? So it's got little handles on it. I can pull these little handles around however I want and resize the video. I can also grab the video and move it around. Super flexible. If I grab it in one of these middle points, it will distort the video. Oh no, this one doesn't distort. Sorry, won't let me distort this one. But we can use transform actually to do that. So I could get tweaky about it. I could put myself in the upper corner and then pull this tab down until it kind of clicks into place. And now I've filled my entire screen. There is another way to do it, which is probably a little easier. I can right click on the video. And you see about halfway down there's this thing called transform. And so transform, you can see there's all kinds of things I can do. I can flip this horizontally. Woohoo! That one always disorients me a little bit. I can flip myself vertically. Yay, now I'm upside down. I don't recommend this if you're doing a demo video. This will make your viewers a little uncomfortable, but hey, it's an option. So I'm going to put myself back where I was. That's not what I want to do. I want to make myself full screen. So in transform, I can do that where I can say fit to screen. Boom. And now I've got full screen. So if you need to do it quickly and accurately, that's probably the best way. Right click on the source and say fit to screen. There are other things I can use as sources. So for instance, I often use a display capture. I'm going to resize this video again because I want you to be able to see some of the other sources that I pop up here. Let's add a display capture. So I'm going to name it for the class so I know not to use these again. And you can see that my my display capture is going to be huge. Right? It's way too big. I can't even see the whole, I can't even see just a part of the window. So again, I can right click, transform, fit to screen, and boom, now it fits neatly. So it went the other way. We had too big of a source, now it's fitting just right. But professor, you say, where did your camera go? Well, that's a interesting point. The sources down here have a hierarchy. So whatever's on top is always going to be in front. So if I want my webcam to be overlaying my display, I have to click on webcam. And these two buttons here promote or demote a particular source. So if I promote this, now you see me. If I demote it, it'll be behind the display capture, and now you won't see me. Now you see me. Now you don't. So it's important to remember that the hierarchy matters. If you want to see something in front, it has to be on the top of the list. Let's say I wanted to add one of my other cameras. Well, I would add another video capture device. And let's call this one the, I don't know, which one should we use? The webcam? Let's use the FaceTime camera. So again, I add it, and then I'm going to choose the device, which is my FaceTime camera. Hit OK. There's my FaceTime camera. You get to see my messy space. It's covering my webcam. Why? Well, because it's on top. So if I want it to be behind, I can demote it, and there's my webcam. And I can move this person over here, and you can see that this one overlaps. It's more important. And this is overlapping the display because it's more important. If I elect the display to be more important than the FaceTime camera will disappear because it's now behind the display. And when I mouse over it, you can see the blue square that pops up, which is showing me where that source is actually located. So if I want this thing to pop up suddenly, I can select it, promote it, and boom, there it is. And then if I want to hide it, I can just select it, click back, and it's gone. I don't have to do a display capture, right? I'm going to end up eventually doing some sort of a software demonstration. Doesn't mean I need to see your whole desktop. There's something called window capture. In order to use window capture, I have to have the program open first. So let's open a program like Reaper, let's say, right? Here's Reaper. So now that I have the program open, if I go to add a window capture, I can click on this source and it actually shows you everything that's open right now. So Reaper is actually the thing I want to show you, so I'm going to pop that in there. And once again, you can see the zebra stripe on the outside, and that means that whatever this source is, it's bigger than the canvas that you're working on. So again, I can right-click, hit transform, fit to screen. There we go. It's in front of everything right now because it's at the top, so I'm going to demote it behind me, and there I am. I could get rid of my display capture. Let's say, oh, I don't want this display capture anymore. So I can use the minus sign to get rid of it. Now, I could use, there's another thing in Transform called stretch to screen. That'll distort the image a little bit. That may or may not matter. It really depends on what you're dealing with. But this, you can see it distorted it a little bit. Now it's a little stretched from left to right. But if you want to fill your screen, it doesn't quite make it. Generally for a program, it's not a big deal if you stretch a little bit. For my image, it would probably be a little weird because then I'd be a little shorter and fatter than I actually am. So keep in mind there are two options to fill your screen. There is fit to screen and there is stretch to screen. Fit to screen will automatically resize to have the best fit to fill as much of the screen as possible. As you can see, this aspect ratio isn't quite the same as my 16:9 canvas here. So it doesn't quite fill the whole thing. There's black bars on either side because it's just a little smaller than the screen actually is. But if I want it to fill, I can distort it a little bit. And there it is. So I'm going to get rid of this FaceTime camera. I don't want it anymore. Again, I can move it up in front if I like, and there I am. Woo! But I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to hit the minus button. So we have video. We have the program or the display. I actually prefer the display, but depends. Some people are a little shy about sharing their desktop, and that's fine. We'll talk about some of the idiosyncrasies of sharing windows instead of sharing displays, because sometimes you think you're showing something, but it's not captured by that particular window. That's something we're going to have to talk about. But for now, I'm going to leave it as is. What's missing? Sound is missing. So I need some sort of an audio input capture. Again, I will add a source. I have audio input capture. One other bit about OBS, it does not like using big fancy multi-channel interfaces. It will give you some problems if you try to connect it that way. I have a lot of strange routing going on here to make my big fancy interface go into OBS, but you can actually make your life simple by having a simple 2-channel or 1-channel interface. You can use the built-in microphone on your computer. It's not going to be the best quality. It's probably going to pick up a lot of background noise. So if you really should anyway at this point, right? You guys are ready to graduate. You should own some sort of a dynamic microphone. They can be had pretty cheaply for like $25. You can pick up a Behringer, a little cable, and one of these guys for, I think this one's $150, but you can get the Scarlett for $100. Sounds like a lot of money, but you should have something a little bit better than the built-in audio on your computer. That said, you don't need to run out and buy stuff for this particular project. If all you have is your phone or your computer and you can use the built-in microphone on that, that's acceptable, but it's not going to be a professional sounding result, just so you know. I'm going to switch over to this interface. Right now I'm using the big fancy one, which looks like that over there. but that's not going to help us. This is the one that OBS is going to be able to address directly because it only has 2 inputs. Now you'll see that I actually have some that I've already added to this in other scenes. So if you've already added this in another scene, like for instance, I've added the Steinberg interface in a previous scene. So I could really just hit add existing, choose that, and it would all be ready to go. But I want to show you again from scratch. So this is Steinberg MP207. I'm going to click OK. And now I have to select my device. So you'll see what shows up here. I have my built-in computer microphone. Again, if you don't have an interface and a microphone, this is what you're going to end up using, is your built-in microphone. I don't recommend it. It's going to be not the best sound. It's going to pick up a lot of background noise. But if that's what you have, that's what you have, and it's fine. My capture card actually has a number of audio inputs. Apparently my webcam has audio. I didn't know that, but I've never used it. Here's my Steinberg interface, my little 2-channel interface. And there's a few other things that show up here. So for instance, my Zoom audio device shows up here. I can make an aggregate in my operating system because I'm on a Mac. I have Loopback to route things through, and also Pro Tools Aggregate I/O because I have Pro Tools installed. If you have these options, there's ways you can trick it out to deliver audio from programs as well as your normal sound. But I'm going to choose Steinberg UR22C. I'm going to hit OK. And so now you can see I've got my audio meter, and you might actually be hearing it a little on your left-hand side. It might be phasing. I'm going to pull the fader down for now. It kills the signal. But I'm going to rejoin you. Well, I'll show you this first. So since it's a stereo input source, it's a 2-channel input source, I want this to be mono. You see there's a little wheel here. I can click on that. There's a few options I have, right? I like the vertical layout because this is what I'm used to seeing on a mixer, where I can take my volume up and down and all those fun things. And I can see very clearly now that I'm only getting signal on the left-hand side because I'm plugged into input 1. There's 2 windows here that are of interest to us. There's the properties window, and then there's the advanced audio properties window. Properties is the simple one where you choose the actual input device. That one we've seen. The advanced audio properties, actually, can I mute this and see signal still? No, I can't, right. The advanced audio properties is where I would fix this particular problem. I have a mono button. I can pan left and right. If my audio and video are out of sync, I can fix that here. If I want to monitor through OBS, this is where I would turn that on. If I click the mono button, you'll see suddenly my 2 meters are now equal, right? So if it's mono, I'm only getting on the left-hand side. If mono is off, I'm only getting on the left-hand side. But if I click the mono button, it now centers it right down the middle. You're probably hearing some phasing because this is coming through, I think. And QuickTime's probably picking it up as well. So that's the advanced audio properties menu there. So let's move on to scene transitions. So here's where we could get a little fancier. Oh, we can get fancy anyway, right? Let's get fancy. So let's say I want to create some sort of a title. Why not? I can add a new scene for my title. So let's add MP207 title. Title 1 maybe, right? So here we are back to the blank nothing, right? But for a title, we don't need a video input. We don't even need an audio input. If you just want a title, you can just add a little bit of text. It'll be just fine. So I can add here text. And let's type some. My first title. I can change the font on this if I want. Change the size, change the font, change the style. I can underline it. I can do a strikeout. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. But you can change your fonts here. Let's pick a different font, right? Let's go with that one. I have no idea what that is, but okay. And there's my first title. So here's my little title up here. I can make it bigger or smaller just by clicking on the box, similar to the video. I can use transform to fit it to screen. I can use transform to make sure that it's perfectly centered. So let's say I want to center it vertically, right? Oh, I meant to do vertically. There we go. Could be anywhere I want. There's my title. Now I've got two scenes, right? I can flip back and forth between the two of them. We're going to get there in a second just by clicking on them. But let's say we want to do something a little fancier than this. Let's say we want an image in the background, right? Well, I can add an image. There's my image. I'll call it image. I'm gonna browse, go to my pictures here. Let's do something pretty like that. Hit OK. And you can see it's way zoomed in, so of course I'm going to do my transform again. I'm going to fit it to screen. And where'd my title go? Well, it's behind, right? I have to bump the title up in the order of the hierarchy. And I can position this anywhere I want. Hopefully somewhere where it's readable. And now I've got two scenes. So let's talk about transitions for a second. I think the default, I can't remember, but I believe the default is cut. There's something called a jump cut in Filmwork, where you don't make any transition. It's just a straight up cut from one thing to another. It's a bit of a jarring effect, but it's something that's used quite a bit, and it keeps the pace very fast when you do a jump like that. Because there's no warning, it just cuts from one thing to another. This is one way of creating the pacing of a video, is to use jump cuts. For instance, if you want things to feel like they're going a little faster. You don't always want it that way. Sometimes you want it to do something gentle. So for instance, we can do a crossfade between the two, or a blend. So as I go like this, you can see suddenly the transition is smoothed by fading one in as the other one fades out. I can adjust the length of that fade. Let's do like a 1 second long fade, something crazy. So now when I hit this, it's going to be really slow fade. Okay, that has one effect. I can make it a half second. We're dealing in milliseconds here, right? 500 milliseconds. So a half second, and it's a bit of a quicker jump. You can find one that works for you. 300, I think, is a pretty good fade in and fade out. Okay, so now I've got my scene with my software demonstration, right? This is my window capture. I have my title scene with no audio, no video. I could maybe create a scene where all you're seeing is the software itself, right? So without my little picture up here. Of course I could sit here and I could click and demote and promote, and that can get kind of wonky after a while. Probably a little easier to just create a new scene. So we'll call this software only. And once again, I'm going to add a window capture. I'll add the existing one. There's Reaper. I'm going to resize it. Yep, sorry, I'm in the wrong spot here. Now I could do the fit to screen if I want. Looks a little funny with the black bars, so I could either stretch it, or there's another way too. I could mimic it being on my desktop by adding, let's say, the display capture behind it. I'll just use the existing one. Again, I'm going to resize it. And I'm going to promote Reaper so that it's out in front. And right now it's hidden behind the, there's a little bit of a redraw error going on here. Oops, oh, no wonder, because I must have closed it. Sorry. There we go. That looks better now. So this actually looks like I could resize OBS so it's hidden behind it, right? I can hide behind Reaper and you'll never even know it's there. So here I have, well, if I want to speak over this, of course, I then have to add an audio input capture. I'll add my existing Steinberg. I've already created it. There's no need to set it back up again. It's already good to go. So I've got audio input here. I've got me with the software here, and suddenly you see the black bars again, right? So I could add a display capture. I'll add the existing one, resize it. And then of course I'll demote it all the way to the bottom. So it's behind. So now I've got this view and I've got this view without me. You might say, well, Professor, why not just do the display capture and do it that way? Well, you can, but then you have to deal with the fact that OBS will sometimes be out in front. It can be a pain to be jumping back and forth. But I'll leave that up to you to explore that workflow. I could do display capture. Just so you see what it looks like. So once again, I'm going to add, oh, didn't want to add that, sorry. I'm going to add a source, my video capture device. I'll use the existing Logitech webcam. Stick it over here. And I'll add a display capture. Add existing. Resize it. And I will demote it. So you might say, well, you could do it this way. Sure, I could. I could be working like this. And it'll record like this with my picture. You won't see it. I can show you how it looks later. In fact, sometimes this is the safer way to go. Because in a window capture, if you're switching windows within the program, it won't necessarily change with you. So if I try to show you a plugin, or let's say I had the mixer separated from the edit screen here, well, that could be an issue because the transitions won't follow me. I have to actually stick with the windows that I've captured already. So a display capture can be better for demonstration purposes. You just have to deal with the fact that you're going to have to jump back and forth between OBS and the picture. It's something you'll want to edit out later, but not the end of the world. So this is different ways you can go about it. I can do video and display capture only, and then just work in the software and know that I'm going to have to top and tail out the jumping back and forth to OBS. Not a big deal. I could create scenes where it's software only. Of course, now I can only stay in this window. If I try to open a different window, it won't follow me. I'll try and show you that in a minute. And then, switching back and forth with the video. So there's lots of different ways to skin this cat. All right. Let's say I want to speak over, well, I forgot to add an audio input capture here, right? Shame on me, the sound guy. I forgot to add the sound capture for this. Because we're going to actually record a video now. So I'm going to add the Steinberg. Yes. Okay. There's my Steinberg. Let's boost the sound up so it's coming through. So that has sound. That has, oh, that's something else. That has sound. That has sound. So we've got sound all over the place except the title. Let's say I want to speak over the title. Well, I can do that. I can add the audio input capture. Add my existing. And there we go. So now I can actually switch scenes and it'll automatically jump between the two. You can see as soon as I make the transition, you get the two mixers there. It's because it's crossfading between the two. And I'll show you what that sounds like in a minute. Okay, So we've done scenes. We understand that. We have to create scenes. We have to populate the scenes with different sources for whatever we want. We have an audio mixer where we can add audio sources, and I like mine in the vertical normal mixer setup, but of course you can keep it in the horizontal if you prefer. I'm right-clicking and going back and forth there. As my source, I can use a 2-channel interface, or I could use my built-in audio. Again, that's up to you, but preferably you would use a 2-channel interface. I can create my transitions here, whether I want jump cuts between, which are sudden moves between the different scenes, or I can use a gentler crossfade and adjust the timing of that. Looks a little smoother, right? Let's get to the controls part. Start streaming and start recording, that's pretty straightforward. If you hit this button, you will start streaming to whatever's set up for streaming. Now, if you hit this button, it'll start recording a movie. Let's talk about that for a minute. Studio mode just gives you this this view where you can queue up a scene and then preview and program. So I can queue it up, get ready, and then when I'm ready to go, hit transition, and then it jumps across. So studio mode can be helpful with setting this up too. So it's up to you how you want to proceed. I'm more comfortable in this particular mode. It's just what I'm used to. Alright, so let's jump to settings for a second. I showed you some of this in the last lecture. You're probably not going to need to do very much with general. There's not much here that you have to worry about for what we're doing. When it comes time to stream, this will obviously become important, whether you're going to YouTube or Twitch. I demonstrated it before, and I'll demonstrate it again when the time comes. But for the moment, the only thing you really need to know is that you have to pick your service, whatever channel you decide to go with, and then you'll need the stream key from that. That's basically all that needs to happen here. Output is what we're kind of concerned about. So I have a streaming output and a recording output. If I'm going to use this to record some of my demo, which I would encourage you to do, I can set the path here for where those movies are going to end up being stored. Right now it's ending up in the path, my movies folder. Of course I can change that if I want to. My recording quality will determine my file size. Right now I'm using 6 megabit per second with an H.264 encoder, and my audio bitrate is 128 kilobits per second. That's a fairly efficient and small way of recording, and I'm going to keep it there, honestly. If you were really concerned about quality, like if you're going to use this as an actual video recorder, well, that's when you would choose one of these. But for now, we don't need to do that. If you're worried about it, though, if you wanted the best quality, then you would choose one of these other formats. I can choose what kind of wrapper I want it to go in. We're going to stick with MP4. It's a universal format, and it's built for the H.264. That's all you need to really be concerned about here in the output stage. My audio sets my sample rate and my channels. I can make it stereo or mono. I can enable different devices. We don't need to do any of that at the moment. If I want to monitor what I'm doing, I would choose that here. Here's where I set my resolutions. This could also be important. I would encourage you right now to keep it at 1080, but when it comes time for streaming, this might need to change. More on that later on in the semester. Here's my frames per second. And these other things you really don't need to pay attention to at the moment. One setting that I would encourage you to look at in advanced, there's some things to check off here, like automatically reconnect or dynamically changed bit rates. These are things that are useful when you're actually live streaming, but for now, we don't need to be concerned with them. So these are our settings. So now let's say I want to actually do the demonstration. Okay. I can start recording. Maybe I should have been on my title first, right? So here's my title. I am narrating my video. And let's go to my different scenes. Here's scene 1, which is me with the window capture on top of a display capture. This is just a window capture. And this is actually a display capture with me on top. And of course I would have to hide or minimize or make OBS jump behind to do that. I want to show you what the possible problem could be with using a window capture. I'm going to disconnect my mixer here. I'm going to undock it. And I'm going to open a plugin. So while I'm in display capture, this I know I can be confident that all this is showing up. But let's see what happens if we jump to something different, right? So if I go to this, I'm still only looking at the edit screen. It's not showing me the mixer on top. It's not showing me the plugin. So this is the danger of a window capture. It's true I could add window captures here, but then I have to manually switch them. Again, not the end of the world, but it's something that you have to keep in mind. If you do a window capture, then you have to do a specific capture for every window you want to capture. So for instance, I have the VST here, right? So here's my VST, okay. And I'd have to resize that, and I should have named it, right? Let's name it something other than window capture, or I can't name it anymore, I guess. And then I'd have to create another one for the mixer, and then if I want to make them go away, I'd have to use these buttons. Again, not the end of the world, but it becomes a bit of a pain. If I'm on display capture, then whatever's on my screen is what's there. So for instance, I could minimize OBS and I could be showing you what's going on in Reaper and be confident that you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. So display capture can be the better way to go here. Alright, so I'm just doing my little transitions. When I'm all done recording what I want to record, recording my demo, I can hit stop recording and it will save a file for me. And start recording. Maybe I should have been on my title first, right? So here's my title. I am narrating my video. And let's go to my different scenes. Here's scene 1, which is me with the window capture on top of a display capture. This is just a window capture. And this is actually a display capture with me on top. And of course I would have to hide or minimize or make OBS jump behind to do that. I want to show you what the possible problem could be with using a window capture. I'm going to disconnect my mixer here. I'm going to undock it. And I'm going to open a plugin. So while I'm in display capture, this I know I can be confident that all this is showing up. But let's see what happens if we jump to something different, right? So if I go to this, I'm still only looking at the edit screen. It's not showing me the mixer on top. It's not showing me the plugin. So this is the danger of a window capture. It's true I could add window captures here, but then I have to manually switch them. Again, not the end of the world, but it's something that you have to keep in mind. If you do a window capture, then you have to do a specific capture for every window you want to capture. So for instance, I have the VST here, right? So here's my VST, okay. And I'd have to resize that, and I should have named it, right? Let's name it something other than window capture, or I can't name it anymore, I guess. And then I'd have to create another one for the mixer, and then if I want to make them go away, I'd have to use these buttons. Again, not the end of the world, but it becomes a bit of a pain. If I'm on display capture, then whatever's on my screen is what's there. So for instance, I could minimize OBS and I could be showing you what's going on in Reaper and be confident that you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. So display capture can be the better way to go here. Alright, So I'm just doing my little transitions. When I'm all done recording what I want to record, recording my demo, I can hit stop recording. So talk about meta. I'm going to use OBS to record me showing you a little bit of post-production in a video editing software using display capture. So here I am with a display capture, and there's my little face, right? We have infinity screen at the moment. I'm going to hide OBS, and this is iMovie. So I'm going to create a new project in iMovie just to show you what the workflow kind of looks like. iMovie stores media in something called events. So I'm going to call this MP207 Demo. And so it's not a bad idea to create an event for a specific project, but of course I can draw on other media that I might have already had on here as well. So I'm going to import all those fun things that I just created. So let's just grab a couple of these, right? This is the one that I'm actually recording right now, but we don't have to do all that. I don't want to do all of them. Let's just grab a few of them, right? Fast forwarding a bit. There's most video editors or editing software, it's called a non-linear editor, NLE. Most of them have a similar layout. It's a little foreign to you if you're coming from an audio DAW, but once you've figured out what's happening, it becomes pretty straightforward. You typically have an area where your source material is. This is my source material that I'm going to edit into my final video. I generally have a monitor where I can preview or view either my source material or what's going to end up being my my actual movie, which is down here. So I have my bin, my monitor, and my timeline. So I can take a clip out of my bin here and pull it onto my timeline. I can take the other clip, put it on the timeline, take the other clip, put it on the timeline, and now this is my movie taking shape. Right. So once I'm in here, I can also add titles and transitions and all that fun stuff. You can see I have a number of titles I can draw from. I can either put it over the movie itself, or I can create backgrounds. So like, let's say I want to have a black background at first and put a title over that. I could do that, and then well, let's type a title here, right? My title. Woohoo. So I can add transitions. I can trim and cut however I want. I could chop pieces out. This is not a detailed, by any means, a detailed intro to iMovie. We can talk about video editing a later time, but we would lay out our picture here. We would trim things out and put things back and do whatever we want to do. And once we were done, we could export this as a file. So share file, and we would make our settings there. That would be our final movie. Then we'd go back to OBS to finish things off. Now here's the final bit. So once it comes time to actually stream, what you're going to do is you're going to create a new scene. Your source in this case is going to be an actual file. So we go to media source. Now we're going to create new. And we'll find one of our video files, right? So I'll use this one for now. And then whenever the time comes for this to actually stream, it will play back from the very beginning of that. So for instance, for your actual final stream, what you could do, and let me get myself back on here, right? What you could do is you could introduce your video either with nope, there's nothing there. Let me put myself on the screen, right? So I could introduce to you live myself and say, hey, this is my project. Well, of course, I'd have started streaming before that. I'd hit start stream. I'd say, hey guys, this is me, this is my project, whatever. And then I can transition over when I'm ready to my stream, and there it would go. So that's basically how the workflow is going to be. You're going to see how it goes for you, and of course we'll be working on this all together. But essentially that's the thing. You're going to create a video of you demoing a piece of software. You can use OBS, you can use other things to create that video. Could try and live cut it in OBS and see how it goes, or you can pre-record segments of it and then plug that into a video editor like iMovie, or if you're on a Windows machine, I think they have Movie Maker on Windows. Either one will work just fine. They have most of the same features. You can chop things up as you want them to and make your transitions, and if you want to add titles and fancy other things, you can explore some of those options in the editor of your choice. You will then export your finished video, and then you will live stream it for the class. So whichever platform you want, YouTube or Twitch or whatever makes you happy, you'll use OBS to do the actual live stream in class. So hopefully that's all relatively clear. That's it for this week. Next week we'll discuss things in a bit more detail, but this will at least give you an idea of where things are headed, and also you can start to get things together. So you should definitely download OBS. You should definitely download Handbrake. If you need one of those loopback functions, now's the time to explore some of those loopback things, which will enable you to play software into OBS, which is going to be an important component if you're demonstrating. So again, I have Loopback, but there's Soundflower for Mac. There's a few others. I'll send you a list in an email with this video. So let's talk about next steps for you for this week. So that's the end of the video. It's the end of the lecture for today. Your next step should be go and download OBS. That's step number one. Experiment with it. Try and get your different inputs to work, especially your video input and your audio input, whatever that's going to be, whether it's going to be your built-in microphone, or if you have an interface with a better microphone, that's obviously the way to go. But again, make that work. See if you can get display capture to work. See if you can command a window capture to work. Get these things working. Experiment with transitions. Experiment with recording. See if you can generate a file and find it after the fact. Make sure that you're actually getting audio. Preview your footage. That's always a good thing to do. So next week I would expect us to be able to talk after you've experimented with OBS a bit, and then we can get into a detailed discussion about some of the problems or issues you might be having. And then of course there's going to be the issue of trying to figure out how to get your audio playback from your program into OBS. That's going to be the hardest part of this. So we'll see how that goes, but that's your homework for this week. Go download OBS, experiment with it, build a scene, use video input capture, audio input capture, display capture, and window capture. Try the different transitions, try to make a recording. Again, if you have problems, feel free to email me. Maybe we can figure out a time to chat. But otherwise, write down your problems, because chances are other people are going to have the same problems, and we can address them in class next week. So this was the experiment for asynchronous. I don't know how well it went. I guess we'll find out. Any feedback is welcome. And I'll see you guys in a week. Have a great week.